Welcome back to the My Opinion podcast, providing thought-provoking discussions about the ever-evolving global landscape. This episode discusses nightlife and the importance of inclusive events with business management student Abi Nilsson. Please introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Abi. I'm a third-year business management student and I've dedicated my final years of studies to equality, diversity and inclusion and different HR practices.
So, what have you done specifically, or what has influenced you within your day-to-day life to complete this?
Well, I've been working throughout my entire university degree and I've been working for the year before that, and I really saw that different ways that managers lead and different ways that leaders impact people has a astounding effect on worker motivation and engagement, especially when it comes to working in the scene, which I do, where I work in the nightclub industry.
Yeah.
I've just seen the way that different managers have come in and come out, and I've seen the way that different personalities and different ways of talking to people and different ways of being and different even thought processes have just impacted staff members and people's well-being in general. So, that's kind of pushed me to work a little bit more into that scene.
So, you've been working in nightlife for quite a while now. Tell us more about experiences you've had, events you've done specifically, and...
Well, I work actually in a venue for hire. It's not just a nightclub, but we do all types of events, but mainly we run and operate as a nightclub. That's what we do. That's what we're best at. But we've done a million different types of events, all for different things. I think I've worked every single type of event there is under the sun: dinners, poker nights, brand deals. I've worked a G-Shock event where Central C showed up. I've done fetish nights. I've done gauntlets and gowns, which is a night for specific people in a specific group who want to come and listen to specific things. I've done yoga, I've done welfare, I've done everything. I've done police conferences, I've done everything that you can think about. Recently we've been doing a lot more fetish type events. Kind of like if you look at Fire and Lightbox and some of the events that they hold and some of the licensing they have, we kind of share the same one. So we've been kind of picking up those events because it's actually quite a large scene and it does bring in quite a large amount of revenue. So it does it's a smart business choice to do them. It's also, they're quite interesting events to work and they're quite fun to work.
So in regards to, you spoke about fetish events.
Mm-hmm.
How do you and your team or your management go about dealing with that, working those? Has there ever been any issues, or what does it entail?
So it's quite complicated to talk about because there's quite a lot to unpack about it. In terms of staffing, we predominantly have worked in more of the gay scene, which is gay men.
Yeah.
And that I also have a predominantly straight male staff. So it's very important that before these events we run through a lot of welfare and well-being, not because of anything other than we just want everyone to feel comfortable on the shift. And it's not just about having straight men working at a gay event, because obviously there's a lot of stigmatization behind gay men and straight men and them feeling a bit predatory, but that's completely incorrect. As a member of the LGBTQ community myself, I pride myself in making sure that all of my staff stay entirely respectful and just safe and happy and focused on the work that we're doing rather than what's going on around them. So we don't really have a lot of issues that come up on these events. It's more operational issues that we have from our side. There's never really anything that's specifically that entails from just having a gay night. But I would say from my own personal experience, they are some of my favorite nights to work because it just provides such a safe, neutral space for people to be able to come and express themselves and live a lifestyle that they have chosen and that they feel comfortable in, that they can't really do anywhere else. And it's nice to know that you're giving back to, obviously I'm part of the community, and it's nice to know that I'm giving back to my community as well by running these events. For me, it's super important that
you're providing them with a good, safe night, and they can just have a good time.
And especially, I want to say the growing right-wing authoritarianism, sorry, don't know how to properly say that, but with the growing right-wing
group.
views and opinions that are coming out, as you can see
scarily are very popular at the moment in this country.
And as you can see in the recent polls about reform and Nigel Farage's campaign, which has, you know, he doesn't specifically say anything about the LGBTQ community or specific communities, but he does hold those views, and everyone who's done a bit of research on him will know that those are his views. So to be able to provide somewhere that feels safe for our community is just so important, because we are running out of spaces where we feel like we can be ourselves.
Looking at having safe spaces, with the recent Supreme Court ruling where the judges ruled that the term woman is used in the Equality Act, it means purely a biological woman by her sex. So trans women are no longer considered women under the government law or under the Equality Act, which obviously has very, very mixed reviews amongst the UK. How do you feel that will impact nightclubs? How do you feel your club specifically in your events will deal with that? Like, you've got things like a lot of women have come out saying they want women-only gyms, which obviously are excluding trans women because they don't feel safe with they want a women-only gym with biological women. So these women's only gyms are more exclusive than inclusive, because a lot of people with this new act, it backs up what people want, and people feel justified in... I understand that everybody needs spaces to be safe, but unfortunately, by creating these safe spaces, it's a great thing for women, I 100% agree, but it also does breed a lot of hatred towards the transgender community. And if you look at the rulings that have been made in the UK, they only focus on trans women. You haven't seen any legislation or any rights going against trans men, or taking them out of specific sports, of taking them out of anything. When you really look at some of this, it's not hatred towards transgender people, it's actually just holding a misogynistic agenda against women. Gender is a social construct that was created so many years ago, and I understand there's biological differences, but at the same time, who is it hurting? Who is this really hurting other than just women and trans women? It's such a step back, and it doesn't just stop with trans rights. I've always said this, where America goes, England follows. And if you look at the consistent decline in female rights that are going on in the US right now, do you not think that we're just going to go straight down that path as well? In terms of nightlife and the effects that it could have both positive and adverse effects. Positively, it could bring us more business, because then the need for safe spaces is even bigger. But it's all up to the discretion of the promoters of the events, as we are just a venue for hire. So we can only do what we've been told. It could create an adverse effect, because with the government making all of these rules, it could cut out a whole community, and it could make them feel like they don't want to go out. It could make them feel like they don't feel safe going anywhere, wearing what they want to wear, dressing up, doing what they feel that they want to do, and being able to be their authentic selves. Taking away someone's rights always does more harm than it does good, and it will just never stop with just trans rights. It will carry on. I think specifically with the creative industry and in nightlife, people have found nightlife is their way of expressing themselves. If they can't do it on a day-to-day basis, you see people in, like, you have specific events for groups of these people, or you have places. So when you look at the venue Coco in Camden, for example, I've got artists such as Erica Jane, who people will know her from The Real Housewives, but she's been an advocate for the LGBTQ community for years. Her as an artist is her alter ego. Her music was made for people to just be who they are, do what they want. She has events, and she's had things in Mykonos, LA, Vegas. She's done her residencies, everything. And now with laws like this coming into place, there's obviously going to be a decline in safe spaces. You've got places like Heaven is obviously quite different to yours. They have their own management. There's been a lot of controversy around that nightclub. A lot of stuff has happened. People aren't safe. What's your opinion on that, and how do you think that could change? Or,
well, when you look at Heaven as a nightclub and as a safe space that it is, again, when I was 18, it was one of the first places that I ever went to, because I wanted to go to a place where I felt like I could be myself, and I felt like I could live who I was.
Yeah.
And that was so important to me. But unfortunately, every single experience that I've had in the Heaven Club has been hindered by, sadly, straight men.
Yeah.
I remember one of the first instances that I've gone to Heaven. A lot of my friends didn't get in because they didn't, and I'm doing quotation marks, look gay enough.
Yeah.
Even though we're all very much part of the same community. It just kind of goes to show that some venues like that, they're more performative than they are anything else. We at our venue decide that we want to make a safe space. Heaven just sadly is more of a performative version of that. The way that they judge and the way that they deter the community, it's become less about being a safe space for the gay community and more about what looks good and what can get in.
With the new Supreme Court ruling, obviously you have to physically be a biological woman to get into certain spaces. Will places ask for specific ID? Will passports, for example, if you apply for a female passport, if you're a trans woman, will your passport be under woman, female, or will you be under a man? And will people start looking at passports to get into places instead of who you are and just your ID? Is that something Heaven or other nightclubs, for example, on events, specific events like the fetish events or like specific gay events? And I know you've said before you have events, even like a lesbian night, or just a night for females, no matter who you are, what you are, it's just a fun night. Do you think there'll be a shift in ID checks and looking at actually who you are to get into these spaces?
Well, again, it really varies from venue to venue. I can't speak for mine because we are just such an inclusive space that we just, if you're happy, you're happy, and we're happy that you're there. But other venues such as, again, Heaven, or for example, when you look at Mayfair clubs specifically, Mayfair clubs have some of the highest rejection rates when trying to enter a venue, and that's currently stemmed in misogyny. For example, when I went to the Mayfair club Taboo, I was told that I wasn't allowed to be in the venue unless I had taken my jacket and my jumper off so that I was showing skin. I think that with the ID checks and with this new rule and new legislation that's come in, I think that it just gives venues another reason to turn people away at the door. It just gives another reason to breed hate. From a business perspective, their only goal is to make money. It doesn't matter about how they do it. It's about how much money they have in those cash tills at the end of the night. That's what's important to venues, and that's what should be important to businesses. It shouldn't be about who your consumers are unless you've got a very specific brand image that you're trying to uphold. I have quite a lot of transgender friends, and we're worried about the backlash that this legislation will have because it just gives people more of a reason to put their disgusting opinions and just make them backed by the government. It gives anyone the right to drag someone out of a bathroom and be like, you can't be in here. Gives anyone the chance and anyone the backing and anyone the reasoning to question what community you're part of and if you're biologically a woman.
The argument about a trans man being in a woman's bathroom is also applied in this sense of you now have a trans girl, however old she is, in a bathroom with fully grown men because you've not allowed her to be in her safe space in a female's bathroom.
So our venue, for example, when we're hosting these types of events, our toilets are completely unisex. We take down the male and female signs that we are legally bound to have during the previous events, and we make them unisex because I'm going to take a quote from Hidden Figures, which was a film about racial prejudice in NASA, and it's an incredible film. But he knocks down the coloured women sign and he says, we all pee the same colour here at NASA. And it's correct because, there's so many quotes from films and so many quotes from social media everywhere. Even if you look at an episode in Brooklyn Nine-Nine where Rosa Diaz, one of the detectives, comes out as bisexual and she's not accepted by her parents. But a fellow gay officer then comes up to her and says, every time that someone steps out and says who they are, the world becomes a more interesting, better place.
I think things like this just haven't been thought out enough, and it is the same with, like you said, with the whole thing with NASA. History does just keep repeating itself, and no matter how much we learned, for example, from the civil rights movement in America, obviously that was a very, very different thing, but it still stands the same in people are just people. You shouldn't discriminate or hate or change your opinion on someone just because they aren't like you.
Bringing back to my business course, I have studied equality, diversity and inclusion with an equality, diversity and inclusion manager for about 3-4 months now. And it's been one of the most interesting courses that I've ever done. At the start of every lecture, we just talk about how we've now this week taken a step back. When you look at EDI and when you look at all of the effort, all of the work, all of the struggle that's been put into making like the world a more inclusive, a more strong place, and there are so many business cases that just prove that diversity just brings business gains. And then you look at how we're now taking such a gigantic step back with the growing right-wing opinion. I've read in my EDI course, legislation affects people's bias and it affects people's attitude and opinions. Of course, there are people that already have these opinions and biases, but when they're backed by government regimes, it just kind of furthers the agenda.
Horrible.
It's not about gender. It's not about being safe. It's not about anything other than a disgusting agenda pushed by an old orange man.
Yeah.
That's all it is. Before people wake up and realize that, it will be too late. Before the women who are pushing this agenda about getting trans women out of certain clubs, certain places, certain things, before they push this agenda, they will sit back and they will realize that it's not about trans women, it's about women.
People need to have discussions about this so that people know what's actually going on and what the implications of the implications are.
My advice and closing statement to everyone: be as loud about this as you possibly can be. They may not want to listen, but they will hear it.
Yeah.